Let's jump right into it. Does the bolt cycle know? Is the project dead? Game over? We'll find out right after a word from our sponsors. Thanks again to JetBrains for providing me free access to their toolkit to help with Unreal Engine development. Give them a look and use the following promo code at checkout for a 25% discount on a personal annual license. And now, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Yes, the answer was yes. I mean, yes to the first question, no to the other, whatever. The point is, we can finally move on to working on new features again. I do always feel bad about how long it takes to get new stuff to show off, but real-life events and the day job need priority, so just know I'm not dead, but you can bet I'm slow roasting these bugs until they are. And I guess if I ever am dead, I'll be sure to let you know. Anyway, let's break down the fix and we'll talk about what's next after that. It basically came down to a combination of my bugs and some Unreal Engine weirdness. First, I had to add a ton of special cases to ignore bad hit results from the engine, and by digging through the code for long enough, I finally realized that it doesn't initialize all the fields of a hit result in every situation, so that's fun. I also ended up allowing child components that get blocked by a movable parent to shortcut by passing their motion directly to the parent instead. Without this, it creates a bunch of extra cycles of A hitting B, then B getting stuck on C, and then C and B going back and forth until that finishes, and then A steps again. But this way we can kind of bypass that B and C loop and get back to working on A quickly. When that didn't fix everything, my only choice was to either try a different physics engine or see if scaling everything up might change the behavior. Logically, this shouldn't change anything because UE5 is using doubles instead of floats now, so there shouldn't be precision issues like this. But logic is no substitute for experimentation, so I tried exporting all the models for the parts scaled up by 100 times, and most of the phantom hits disappeared. And then just to see what would happen, I did it again with only 10x scale, and things were still working a lot better. I didn't want to have to scale everything else up in the world, so I decided to check if I could then change the scale in the engine so the weapon itself would be 10x smaller, and the collision was still working. So I suspect there's somewhere in the engine's physics stack that still relies on single precision floats. But I've been stuck on this bug for so long that I'm fine with this workaround and didn't go scouring through the engine to figure out exactly why this happens. Who knows, maybe some UE dev will stumble across this video and figure out the real fix. Unfortunately, there are still these phantom collisions that don't quite make sense happening. They're isolated to the part of the firing pin that passes through the bolt, but not the part of the firing pin that hits the round and also passes through the bolt. So for now, I threw my hands up, decided we need to start making progress elsewhere, and remove just that part of the firing pin collision. If I can't find a workaround for this, maybe the game will just have to have restrictions about long, thin parts that pass through holes in other parts. I don't know, we'll have to figure out exactly what about that part of the collision made it fail sometime, someday, but I just can't spend time on it anymore. Some of you out there might be asking, why did we even need to do this change? Didn't we see it working before? Yes, it did work before, but the issue is that the bolt actually needs to rotate around the bolt carrier so we can implement bolt locking and unlocking. Before, the bolt carrier was a child of the bolt, so as long as the bolt moved, it would take the carrier with it. Now, the carrier and the bolt are independent of each other, so they need to be able to push on each other correctly, which is how we stumbled across this problem with all the bad hits coming from the engine. Now the real question, what the heck were we working on before this bug halted everything? I'm currently still using the old BP code on other weapons and to allow players to interact with parts, so that needs to be fixed so players can properly fiddle with their Johnson, meaning converting all that into motions and passing those to the motion manager instead. And I should probably convert all the screen to world math to C++ if I'm in there anyway. But that's kind of boring. Maybe I could focus on getting the Johnson feature complete first. That should be more fun to work on and to look at. So we need to start ejecting the spent casing and get the bolt to feed a new round from the magazine. So we'll need that magazine subsystem too. Oh, and having the bolt lock and unlock correctly would be pretty cool. Now I remember, I actually started working on the ejector and then noticed the problems with the bolt because the ejector has to slide into the bolt after it rotates to knock out the casing. So I guess that means it's back to the 3D math minds for us. Currently, the lever components only work in the default orientation, X forward, Y right, Z up. I think I got about half done with making it work in any orientation, but I ended up breaking the default case. Yeah, it's all coming back to me now. Oh, and the bolt gets unlocked because it pushes against this part of the carrier. And locking is the same thing, but the carrier pushes on the bolt. So maybe the next thing is actually to get the ramp motion component implemented, which if you don't know what I mean by motion component, you can check out this video for an explanation on what those are. If I can add a ramp motion component here on the carrier, then that should allow the bolt to rotate whenever it hits it. Either way though, better levers, ramps, looks like I'm headed deep into the 3D math minds again. As always, thanks to all my supporters putting up with my random schedule, and of course, thank you for watching.